Wow. So I'm doing this despite being terrified to do so, but I felt a little bit better talking about the Charmed reboot after seeing everybody's reaction on Twitter and seeing that I'm not the only one that feels this way about it. Now, the CW is bringing back a show, well, not really bringing back, they're rebooting a show with it that was very popular in the late 90s and early 2000s called Charmed, which I've seen like a handful of episodes with. I saw a lot of the episodes with Bruce Campbell, and the show seemed fun. I am open to watching it again and maybe going through the first couple seasons. But with anything popular, they will eventually want to reboot it and to bring new life into it, so to speak. However, from what I've seen, it's got the same premise. It's got the three sisters. One can stop time, one can read minds, and then the other has telekinesis. And these three find out that they're witches after their mom is killed by some sort of demon or paranormal entity. They're not sure why. And then a man named Harry shows up and tells them about their history and about their mom, and that they're secretly witches and they have these mystical powers. And it's this giant info dump. And I think the pilot has a lot of issues, and this show does not start off on a good foot. I almost stopped it within the first 10 minutes because it was so beating me over the head with its political agenda. And I think from reactions that I've seen from others on Twitter, both men and women are feeling like they want to get an escapism from TV shows. For me, having stuff like this, obviously, I don't want to infringe on anybody's right to speak about things they care about and to write about things they care about. I'm a writer. I write about things that concern me, but I like to mask them in supernatural elements. And that's the problem. My problem with Charmed is that it puts so much of the real world in there, is that there's no parallels to make. The stuff that's going on right now with the Me Too movement is very much prominent in this show, and I have to preface this by saying that I am in no way condoning actions of others that have done things without people's consent. I am not defending those people, but I think that that viewers, including myself, want to get away from that from time to time. Television and books are a good escapism. It's meant to be something that gets us away from the real world. But me, I was going into it with an open mind. I didn't have the fandom built up for Charmed like I would if they were to reboot Angel or The X-Files. So I was able to kind of go with it in an open mind. I was really wanting a new urban fantasy series. There's a couple of urban fantasy television series that are on right now that are pretty solid. Wynonna Earp isn't bad. I've heard good things about Van Helsing, but there's not a strong one that's really leading the charge like X-Files and Buffy the Vampire Slayer used to. And both of those series had really strong female leads, but they didn't need to beat us over the head with the fact that certain people in certain positions are all awful demons and evil people. It didn't roll that way. But I think this new Charm show is so fixed on its political agenda that it ends up losing everything that would make the show interesting, because there are good things in the show. And I think that the introduction of the powers is both it's funny at times and it's interesting, because I'm interested to see that aspect of the show and to see the supernatural aspect of the show. It's like seeing their powers and how it could potentially go wrong. It's like one of the sisters who could stop time. It's just like, what if she loses control of that ability? I mean, that could be a theme within a couple of episodes where she accidentally stops time and she can't turn it off. I mean, that would be a great episode. Just an idea there. There are so many things they could explore in this new reiteration of Charm, but I feel like that all these supernatural elements and those interesting elements that they could take with their powers and even their sisterhood is going to take a backseat to the writers and the directors wanting to say something about what's going on in both politics and in Hollywood right now. So the episode itself centers on them trying to find the demon or the entity that killed their mom, and they think they find it later, and sorority leader, sister, or whatever you want to call it, and they throw some baking soda on her because they find out that there are some demons that are allergic to baking soda, and this leads to a really funny scene where they put it on somebody that they think is the demon, and it turns out she's not, and she's just staying there drenched in baking soda. That was probably one of the funniest moments in the pilot, and we could have more stuff like that. It's just and then later on they find out that the demon that they did end up finding wasn't the one that could have potentially hurt their mother, but they find out that one of the faculty members that has been accused of sexual assault is actually the Night King. Yeah, he looks like the Night King of Game of Thrones. I don't even watch Game of Thrones, but I know what the Night King is and what he looks like. He looks exactly like the Night King when he transforms in his demon form. It looks cool, but it's not original. I mean, it's I mean, it's cool if you're a Game of Thrones fan and all, but it's just like, why would you? I feel like that's almost too on the nose. I do want to touch on more good things. The actresses aren't bad. There are people saying that the acting is bad and it's atrocious. It's not. I think it's the characters that are just written that way, that they're unlikable at times because they're very young and they're very driven and they're very politically correct, and it's like all three of them are like that. And I think it would be interesting if there was more, ironically, if there's more diversity. Like, yeah, there's more diversity as far as race and other things, but there's not a political diversity too. It's like, if you're so bent on having a political agenda in your show, you at least need to have that diversity too. You can't just show one side. It's like, even as somebody who didn't watch the original series religiously, I was expecting more magic and monsters and, humor and more sister bonding, but really I feel like I just sat through somebody telling me their political views, and that's not what I want to go to a show for. And I'm not saying that you can't have that in a show, but it needs to be a small ingredient like you would have on a sandwich. It can't be the meat of the story. CW, if you're wanting a good urban fantasy show, there are lots of really great authors that are writing series or that have just finished series that are around that genre, and I feel like they're all well written, and I know that they would welcome it. Let's see, let me show some right here that I've got sitting right here. Dirty Magic by Jay Wells, which is basically Breaking Bad meets Wizards, about these cops that fight drug dealers that deal in magic and potions instead of meth. That would be a cool show. If you're wanting to go for the more romantic urban fantasy genre, the Crotier Chronicles, written by Michelle Bollinger, would be great. If you're wanting to go with psychics, I got two right here. The Chronicles of Servitude, which is, I believe, book 5 is being worked on right now. This is written by J.S. Bailey. This is about a musician that is also a socially awkward psychic that sees visions of the apocalypse. This is good stuff too. I don't know, this A. Charles Ross, he's got something going on too. He's got this aged psychic that when he touches things, he sees images of the past. And that is the Phantom Lock series. You can make a show out of that, or any of these really. I mean, there's all sorts of new content out there, which is basically my point. It doesn't have to be just revisiting an old show that everybody used to love, but people think that because it's got that name recognition that it's going to do well, but yet we've seen with things like Ghostbusters, it's not the case. And I will be shocked if Charmed even makes it through its first season, let alone gets renewed for a second. So, Charmed, have you seen it? What did you love about the original series? Do you like this new reboot? Are you going to stick with it for a little bit? What urban fantasy book series would you like to see adapted into a television show? Comment below, let me know. And again, this isn't meant to trigger anybody. I just wanted to give my thoughts, and it was very difficult to, because I'm obviously not a woman, but I am a human being, and to me, men and women are both human beings, and while we're different, I think we're all equals. So comment below, let me know. Remember, be nice.